So, all right, boom. How's everybody doing out there? Mark Archibald, the Silver Fox, on the mic tonight, broadcasting live from Prince William County, Virginia, and I'm still the Star Sergeant, retired. Woo! It has been a hell of a week. Episode 10 of Veterans Making a Difference. I can't believe we've done 10 of these things already. It's going to be May at the end of the week. I'm awfully proud of the consistency of the programming and the messaging. And tonight we're going to deliver another fantastic episode. Before we do so, please, every proceed from the podcast is donated to the Amphibious Tractor Memorial. I'll ask you all to please, subscribe if you haven't. If you like the content, please peruse through it, etc. The more algorithms, the more dollars and cents, the more I donate it to that worthy effort. And secondly, I have on tonight Spartan 9. That is my guy, retired Sergeant Major Will Fry's shop down in Jacksonville, North Carolina, right outside of Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, right down there in the downtown portion. And he has a beautiful shop down there. If you're looking for military logo, memorabilia, anything, buy, sell, trade, Will Fry is a good dude. He'll take good care of you. And he happens to be mutual friends between myself and Aman on the other side. Boom. No more paperwork for the night. That's it. Let's proceed with tonight's guest. I got my brother, Amman Catalan, on the other side. Him and I met in 2013 at the Sergeant Major course. We happened to be in the same group together. And I tell you, man, him and I just clicked and got along really well. I knew he was a good dude. He's the guy you want, watching you back at a bar. He's the guy you want on patrol with you. He's the guy you want in the gym with you. He's just a badass, friggin' awesome American that I appreciate his friendship and everything. But tonight, he's going to share with you a little bit about his journey. It's going to probably make you reflect and be very appreciative of us being born here in the United States, because he migrated to this country from Guatemala and ascended all the way to the rank of Sergeant Major. My brother, Amman Catalan, welcome to the show.
Hey, brother, man. Thanks for having me, man.
That's my dude right there, man. I love the beard.
That's 5 years of retirement right there.
That's right. That's right.
You can't see the hair either,
Hey, man, it's like a mullet. It looks sharp on you, baby. It looks good.
Oh, man, it's just long, brother. It's long. I haven't cut it for 5 years, so.
I feel you. Time is valuable, and let's go ahead and get right into it, my brother. Talk a little bit about your upbringing in Guatemala, please.
All right, so I was born in a state called Escuintla, which is by the coast, but the biggest port of the country, Puerto San Jose. I'm about 30 minutes from the beach. I grew up in a small town called Colonia El Ferrocarrilero. Big word, man. The colony of the railroad worker. My grandparents established that back in the day in the 1920s, and I grew up in a small town right there. I went for my grandparents when I was 6 years old, and due to the fact that Guatemala during that time was in civil war. During that time, there was a lot of civil war going on throughout the country, a lot of killings, a lot of murders, and all that stuff. And my dad was not the greatest, man. My dad abused my mom pretty hardcore, and that caused for my mom to go drop us off to my grandparents at the age of 6 years old. And my mom took off to the United States, came here to the United States. So I grew up from the ages of 6 to 13 years old with my grandparents, and that was the most amazing upbringing, man. I grew up next to a river since I can remember 7, 8 years old, man. Every day after school, you would catch me at the river, so much that I got the nickname Water Dog in Spanish because I lived at the river. I mean, I was either fishing or hunting, man. We either go hunt for iguanas. Guatemala is known for volcanoes, and so we walk off to the skirts of volcanoes, and we go out hunting for deer. We go out hunt for, iguanas. Typical country, stuff that you would see somewhere in the backwoods of Louisiana or backwoods of Alabama, in that kind of area. That kind of upbringing,
Yeah.
Didn't have much, man. Parents were very humble. You're talking about outhouses, water only 4 hours a day. Electricity will come in and out, throughout the day. Didn't have a TV. There was nothing going on. And we loved being in the outdoors, man. And grandparents, here's the thing that is gonna blow your mind. I grew up Mormon,
Wow.
in a country with 99.9% Catholics.
Yeah.
my grandpa decided to become a bishop of the Mormon church. He just, somewhere in his travels, renounced the Catholic Church and became Mormon in the 1960s or so, 50s, and he was a bishop during his church. And when I moved with my grandparents in 1980, I went to the church. I'm baptized Mormon. I'm not an active Mormon anymore. I mean, ever since I came to the United States, I did not go to church after that. But when we were active every Sunday, we would go to church with my grandparents. My grandpa and my grandma were both very heavily active Mormons, and most people don't know that about Guatemala. There's actually Mormons over there.
Yeah.
And so it's funny because I was surrounded by elders. A lot of missionaries that did mission, and most of them were from Utah. So everybody from Utah, they would come in there. I fell in love with the American culture. One of the elders, believe it or not, was a Harley rider.
Oh,
And
wow.
we talked about his Harley, man, all the time. And I'm being like 10, 9 years old, just infatuated with Harleys, man. Like, oh my God, like I got to own one of those. I want to, and I was like, because they're non-existent in Guatemala. So, nobody knows about that. And so I used to enjoy doing them. And the funniest thing too was that most of the elders were blonde, blue eyes, So, and I say that not in a bad way, but because when I migrated into the United States, I migrated into South Central LA, 98% black at the time. I was like, whoa, this is not it.
Well, but before we get to, I just wanted to ask you the question real quick before you start talking about, your migration. Guatemala is down in Central America, right? And the southern border obviously is right there, along California, Arizona, New Mexico, Texas. That's a pretty long way between Guatemala cutting all the way up through Mexico to get to that southern border. Can you talk a little bit about your journey from Guatemala, working your way up to Mexico, and then please proceed right into LA times?
All right, cool. So at the age of 13, my mom kind of got herself established. My mom has been gone for 6 years. She used to work as a maid in a house and saved enough money to send for us. My uncle, who was, he was already an American citizen since the 1960s, decided to come and pretty much smuggle us through Mexico. Well, not through Mexico. We had a visa in Mexico. So we started on Guatemala, and he ended up, we took a bus from Guatemala throughout to what the capital of Mexico is now. We ended up getting a bus. We got there. My brother and I, my youngest brother at that time was I was 13 and he was about 7 or 8, give and take, I think 7, years old. So him and my uncle and I were traveling this bus, which is it's a long ride. It was like a 24-hour ride, a bus ride to the capital. Once we got to the capital, my uncle decided to buy plane tickets to Tijuana. So in order to travel you could still travel because we still got the Guatemalan passport still good until Tijuana. Well, what he did is he knew that at Tijuana the immigration was going to be there. So he put $100 bill on my passport, in case we get stopped. If they open the passport, they would take the dollar bill, the $100 bill. Well, we waited, finally got in the plane. And my uncle looks at this American couple, big guy, and I'm 6'3", light skinned, green eyes guy, and I got blonde hair. I don't look Hispanic at all. And my uncle's like, hey, see that couple right there? When the plane debarks, you're gonna get up and get in the middle of them and pretend to be their child. Don't say anything, just go in the middle and pretend to be their child. So when we landed, I really ran to their seat, kind of got in their seat, and they got up and they were looking at me all weird, but I'm trying to sneak in, in between them. And when we debarked the plane, I got off the plane and I just got him, kid. They kept looking at me weird, like, what the hell is this kid doing, And I'm not small. I'm 5'10", 13-year-old. I'm a big kid, And and the guy is didn't say anything, he's kind of kept playing along, and they just waved us through. They waved me through.
Oh, wow.
To the checkpoint with them, And then my uncle and my brother got stopped, by Mexican immigration. and they grabbed the passport, they took the $100 bill, and they waved it through. You
Nice.
know, and when they waved it through, outside was my aunt, and I keep in mind my mom, who already crossed the border once illegally, decided to come back, and she was gonna cross with us. She was like, "No freaking way! I'm letting my two youngest kids cross the border again illegally, right?"
Yeah.
So we got my aunt received us. We went to eat. We took us to his house. And it's actually, you can see it if you've ever been in San Diego. There's the big Mexican flag right on the border.
Yep.
I don't know
Yep.
if you know when you see it from the
Yep.
border, picture that, right?
Yep.
To the right, there's like some hills. There's like the top of this hill right there. You could see some houses there. We were actually in one of those houses right there.
Oh.
And that night, this 16-year-old kid, well, we just waited that night, and this 16-year-old kid. I call this my first patrol, man. My first infiltration patrol, right? We got to infiltrate the perimeter with the enemy heavily guarded all over the place, right? So about midnight, 1 o'clock, he was like, "Let's go." So now we're running, bro. We're running with my mom, myself, and three other people, and my youngest brother. And we come down the hill. We get to the fence, and everybody's like, "Build the biggest fence, man." Yeah, you could be in a 100-foot fence, not gonna matter, man. There was a big old hole. And I used to joke around. I'm like, people call you wetback. I said, call me scratchback, because I literally scratched the shit out of my back when I went underneath the hole, right? First time back crawling, right? So there's a lot of military things going on right here, right? So we ended up going underneath the hole, and we went through this trenching, man. We went through an entrenchment, and we came out in San Isidro to a 7-Eleven. And a dude right there was waiting for us. I don't know if it was a Caprice or a Cadillac. I don't remember exactly. It was a big car, and threw us in back of the car, man. Then we went, and we were in San Clemente by Oceanside at a hotel waiting for the San Clemente checkpoint to turn green. And we were in Oceanside right there. I thought it was almost like meant to be in Oceanside eventually, And I just laughed because, like, going back as a Marine in Oceanside, right? And we waited there, and the light turned green, which means they're not checking, right? Traffic is flowing through in checkpoint. It was a nuisance for us, right? We're like, when we were Marines, we're like, oh man, fuck, they're checking, like the red lights on, right? Well, we waited for that, and drove right through, man, and then landed in South Central LA, 111 in Figueroa. And it's like literally right next to the Watts projects, and it's nearby. It was an intense. We got there, and it was America. I didn't speak the language. All I had with me was the clothes on my back. That's it. The clothes that I was wearing. I didn't have any backpacks. I didn't bring anything, man. And for the days of, all the friendships, everything, their family, everything stayed behind. And I joined my mom, who was at that time married with she married in the United States to an individual who was a U.S. citizen, and we filed for legal citizenship, legal residency. And as soon as we got in, like the next day, my mom filed in for legal residency and all that stuff, and began the process of citizenship, residency first, And when I joined the Marine Corps, I was not a citizen.
Right.
So that's how we ended up in South Central.
Man, that's crazy. I mean, just to, recap for everybody in case you joined in the program late, Aman was born and raised, in Guatemala, left at 13 years old, didn't understand American culture very well, didn't speak, English fluently. And then he gets dropped into the middle of, South Central Los Angeles with just the clothes on his back and whatever that his mom and her new husband have within the confines of their home. And last but not least, he's a big dude. He's 6'3", probably 260 right now, but back then he was 5'10". But he's probably, he's Guatemalan, but he looks white. And he's now he's in a neighborhood. It's like American Me, right?
Yeah.
It's crazy. So tell everybody a little bit about kind of your experience, right before you joined the Marine Corps. And you happen to be like, you're a teenager too. Like, that's the times when kids are really starting to come in their own, and
right.
It's like blood in the water.
I'm about to turn 14, right? So I landed South Central, man, and I don't speak the language. I look white. I'm in an all black neighborhood that is run by Denver Bloods and Piru Bloods. Across the street was Broadway, which it was Broadway Crips. So you couldn't be outside because the Crips would shoot at you, thinking that you were blood. The Mexican gangs, I'm not Mexican, so my Spanish is different. And that time, Mexicans did not like us, because our Spanish was different.
Yep.
So Mexicans didn't like me. Blacks thought I was white. I couldn't speak the language to communicate with white people, the only people that I thought that might like me. So I was at an eye, I couldn't communicate with anybody. So my first friend in the United States was a guy named Carlos. Carlos was his parents were of Salvadorian descent, and he translated everything. And I remember being jumped the first time I got jumped. I was about 2 weeks into being in the United States, and this black kid came up to me and started screaming at me. I didn't know what it was saying, and he just punched me. And my friend Carlos was like, in Spanish, it's like, run, get the hell out. And I ran and I asked him, why did I get punched? It's like, oh, he was calling you white boy. Why you in the neighborhood? And I was like, what is the difference between white and black? I honestly, I tell you, I did not know what racism was. So he took me to the library because I wasn't allowed to go to school yet because my mom was worried that we're still waiting for the applications and all that stuff. So he took me to the library and explained to me what literally racism was in the United States and the difference between colors and all that stuff. Something that in Guatemala nobody cared because over there is social discrimination. You're either rich or poor, but that's all that mattered. You have money, they didn't care what color you were. That was just the way it was. And so that was a big pill to swallow, man. Like no one, but I ended up becoming good friends with one of my neighbors, Kyle, who was a light-skinned kid who used to get picked up as well, because there's a big difference between light-skinned kids and dark-skinned kids, and when you get in those rings or those fights, and you're just kind of like, what the hell is going on, And so gangs were big, I watched the birth of MS-13, which is in the news all over, right? It's like, people joined MS-13 at that time. Bloods and Crips are going at it. And I'm all like, screw all that. I don't want to be part of that. I didn't come to the United States to join a gang. I'm going to be a skater. So I played volleyball, and I used to play volleyball in Guatemala, man. And I dove into the sports and the school. I was the first high school graduate for my family. None of my brothers graduated. Nobody graduated from high school. I was the first one to attend college. Now we got cousins that graduate from college now and everything else. But I was the first one in the military, for my entire family. But so while I was in South Central, everybody's gangbanging, everybody's doing drugs. Everybody, in South Central, you're either going to sell drugs, you're going to buy drugs, or you're going to join a gang. Nobody talks about joining the military. And I was like, I don't want part of it. Watch drive-bys. Those drive-bys happening, man. You talk about school shootings. Go to Locke High School, man. There was a drive-by every day there. That was not even used, every day. But there was a drive-by every day, between Bloods and Crips, if not South Los, Florencia, Trece, all these gangs that were predominant in LA during that time. My first school was in Hollywood, and I watched the birth of MS-13, which a bunch of Salvadorian dudes trying to protect themselves from gang members that were getting jumped. MS-13 was nothing but a bunch of stoners, believe it or not, before they became what is known now MS-13, right? But, I watched that and I was like, nope, don't want part of that either, and I devoted myself to school and sports, man. I was really good at sports. I had a couple offers, to go to college and play volleyball. And like every other good sport guy, I hurt my knee, my knee gave up, so and ended up going to a place called Job Corps. So if you're not familiar with Job Corps, it's for low-income families, and they teach you a trade. I turned 18, graduated from high school, didn't want to, couldn't go to college, and Job Corps was this government trade school, and it still offers a lot of good opportunities for low-income people. But Job Corps was offering this data entry specialist course, which I was like, this computers, this is 1993, bro. Like, this is new to us, right? So I'm all like, hey, let me figure this out. And luck would have it, man, I was in downtown LA, and because I moved out, so Job Corps they offer you room and board, and I didn't want to be a burden for my mom. My mom was struggling, we were having a tough time, making ends meet. My mom was a maid, and her husband worked, and I needed to get a job, and I didn't want to sell drugs. I wanted to beat the statistic and the stereotype. I just didn't want to be another statistic of another immigrant that came over here and did nothing for himself. So I was looking for opportunities of education. I didn't have money for college. From where? I didn't want to get on debt. So I joined Job Corps. So I was living in downtown. Job Corps is ran like the barracks. They have curfews. They have little cars with like the only certain amount, and you have inspections. And had a roommate, just like a barracks. I had a barracks room, and I kind of like kicked off the military life. And I was like, this is not that bad. And a friend of mine decided, now I'm 19, going to turn 20, trying to finish this Job Corps thing. My friend of mine got a girl pregnant. And it's like, hey, man, I'm joining the Army. And I'm like, oh, let's go talk to the recruiter. The recruiter used to be in 11th Avenue in Broadway, downtown LA. Now, keep in mind, in order to get there, we had to go past through like 18th Street gangs, all these gangbangers, all this crap in downtown, right? And here I am now, I dress, I got Dickies. Picture this. I got Dickies, I got long hair, I got a goatee like yours, except that my goatee is blonde and red, okay? I'm wearing a set of Harley Davidson boots, the round tops, with a chain on and just a white t-shirt, and long hair, right? So I look different than anybody else in LA. I mean, at that time it was called the rebel scene, I was in the rebel scene. Kind of looked like a greaser, for I say, And we ended up walking into, we were having a couple beers. There used to be a corner store, and they used to sell us beers, back in the day to the miners. So we had a couple 40 ounces, so we were pretty trash. And we're walking inside the recruiting office on 11th and Broadway, 11th and Main, I'm sorry. And as you walk in, you got the Army, you got the Air Force in the back, the Navy in the front, and the Marines right in front of the Army, right? So we walk into the Army, and this guy sees it. My friend Robo, who looks like a total gangster, man. Bull-headed, Mexican-looking, looks like a cholo. Guy is smart as hell. Scored 95 in the ASVAB. I scored a whooping 35. So we go there, and the guy looks at us and says, "Get the fuck out, you guys. We don't want you. You guys are drunk and you guys look stupid." Lo and behold, man, God bless. Stats aren't cold. Stats aren't cold. His brother, clean cut, man, looking good, looking sharp. Pulls up in a 1992. I never forget this. 1992 Maxima, wearing some Dockers and a tuck chain, looking good, smell good, man. I was like, damn, man, like this guy's got money. I'm broke. I got make $2 to my name, got no car, living in a barracks, right? And he's like, hey, where you guys going? Man, screw you. Your brother just kicked us out. He's like, I ain't got no brothers. I'm a Marine. I'm like, what's the freaking difference, man? It's the same crap. And he's like, no, it's not. Where you guys heading to? You're not continue drinking, man. We're going to that. It was a Carl's Jr. right there. We're going to go Carl's Jr. So we kind of left. He came back. Now he's in his blues, bro. And he's looking sharp. And I was like, what the hell is this motherfucker? And he's like, hey, what do you got? You guys high school grads? He's like, yeah, we're high school grads. He's like, hey, man, what you got here? Blah, blah, blah. He start talking, start giving us a recruiting speech. And he's like, give me your beeper number. Keep in mind, I got a pager number, right? Give me your pager number. And I was like, I gave him my pager number. He said, what are you guys doing tonight? This is a Friday night. We're heading home. I live in South Central LA. Oh, you're in the ghetto? I was like, yeah, I'm in the ghetto. I was like, oh, are you scared to go? So I ain't scared to go. He's recruiting out of East LA. He's out of the East LA office. So for him, it's almost like a 20, 30-minute drive to go into South Central. But grad is a grad. Recruiting, we say that, grad is a grad. We don't care where he's at. We're going to go get him. He belongs to nobody. So he came and got him, and he got me and Romo and did the test. Except Romo scored like a 95, bro. I scored a whooping 35. And he's like, hey, you're a Bravo. I didn't know what he meant back then, man. Like what a Bravo meant or nothing, And it's like, I can't put you in, but I can put your friend in. And my buddy's like, no, he ain't goes, I don't go. And so he's like, look, after October 1st, I could get you both in. this is like July, man. And so we did the process, and October 24th, man, I was in Charlie Company, MCRD San Diego, barely spoke English, English all broken and everything. All I knew is I sir, no, sir, yes, sir, and here we go. That's all it's a road. We're in the Marine Corps now.
What a crazy journey.
South Central LA.
What a crazy journey, man. What a nut. That's just nuts. Yeah, we're very blessed to be born here in the United States and be educated here in the U.S. and do kind of like the normal things. And hearing your journey is very, very humbling, to me personally. Okay, so now you're in the Marine Corps. It's going to be an impossible task, Aman, on our timeline to cover every single thing that you did in almost 26 years in the Marine Corps. Impossible. So I'm just going to ask you kind of a few random things, and I just wanted to kind of talk through it a little bit. What was the thing that was the most rewarding thing to you overall your time serving in the Marine Corps?
There are many, man, but like one of my first ones. So when I first joined, I was a resident. I didn't have a citizenship. I was not a citizen yet. And when I first joined the Marine Corps, I ended up in India, 3-3 in Hawaii, and one of the first things, the most rewarding things I did the process to become a U.S. citizen. And it's funny because my wife at that time, she's short Hispanic girl, and I'm doing the process because hey, they told me that hey, you'd serve a year in the Marine Corps. After you serve in a year, you could be a citizen. So I was hell yeah, I'm like done. So after my year, I applied. And they called me up. So actually, Lance Corporal Catalan goes to the meeting. He goes to the embassy, to the court side, to the immigration department. In order to become a citizen, you have to take a test. And there's this big test, man. It's huge. And then you got to be able to speak English and all this stuff, right? So I walk in there, and I'm with my ex-wife at the time, and then it's like, hey, we're here to do the citizenship. And the guy turns out to my ex-wife. It's like, I'm glad that you've taken this huge step to become a U.S. citizen. My wife's born here. She's right. And she looks at me and she's like, he's the immigrant, not me. He looks at me and he's like, wait, you're not American? I'm like, because I'm in blue. I'm in my Charlies. I'm full, tie and tie and everything. He's like, no, man. I'm like, I want to be a U.S. citizen. And he's like, oh, man, come on. And so we start talking. He's like, oh, yeah, I'm serving the Marines and blah, blah, blah. And just having a great conversation. It's like, bam, bam. Hey, man, go to the court day. They're going to swear you in. You're going to become a U.S. citizen. So, right to that. So I went to the courts and walked in, swore in, became a U.S. citizen. That was one of the most rewarding things I did in the Marine Corps as a lance corporal. It was a huge step. I always say, it's not about whether you're born in the United States. It's what you're a true American in your heart. You feel it, and you understand why do you protect the freedoms and their rights. Not because giving birth, being born doesn't give you the right. Sometimes it doesn't have the same mentality of appreciating the freedoms and the rights that we have in this country. But that was one of the most rewarding things, man. Outside that, it's like. From combat to DI, there's so many things, man. Great stories of resilience and helping out, kids. I had a when I was a drill instructor, I had a kid, was from the Congo. His name is actually probably see him around. His name is Dr. Chikaya Messiah. And helping him out with that transition as well. To become a United States Marine, man, that was amazing, But I think that's my biggest highlight in the Marine Corps outside, impactful for me. It will give it the opportunity to be a U.S. citizen.
Yeah, and Aman, I know you're humble and you don't like talking about your achievements and your accolades, but you're very decorated. You've been on 3 different special duty assignments. Numerous combat tours and stuff, and you're awarded the Purple Heart. What were you awarded the Purple Heart for?
So I had the opportunity to serve with great Americans, man, in Iraq in 2005. It's funny because I thought I got screwed, but I kind of worked out and played for me, right? So I was in the drill field and finishing my, I went there as a young sergeant in 1999. I'm like, hey, I'm gonna be a DI, and I did, and then stop, loss, stop, move came in, right? Now it's
Yeah.
2002, and they're like, hey, we're about to go to war, and everybody's order. I had orders to 5th Marines, and so I'm ready to leave, right? But stop, loss, stop, move came in, so I can't move. So by the time I got released, it's like December of 2002, beginning of 2003. Everybody's locked on. Everybody's locked on to go on ship. That we're about to do the invasion. Come on April and all that stuff, right? So they're like, hey, we're gonna send you to SOI. And keep in mind, I'm just finishing my first SDA. We're gonna send you to SOI, and you're gonna create a new course in the Marine Corps. We're gonna call it 8513 Combat Instructor.
Yeah.
You're gonna be one of the creators of this course. So I'm like, what the hell? What? No, the war's starting. I'm an 03 Super Bowl, man. I gotta be part of the Super Bowl. I can't go to SOI. And how that goes after that. It's like, shut the hell up, go. And it is what it is. It's your orders. So I get 1 year orders through SOI. And I go to SOI. Started, a guy named Jones. I don't know if you remember Jones. First Sergeant Jones was there. He was the first chief. And we started developing the course 8513, combat instructor. We ended up, kind of refining it. So my year's up at SOI. We're already in the war. The war just about to happen. And I'm screaming like, hey, I'm an 03. I just did a B billet. I don't need a second one. I need to go to the war. And they're like, nope, we need you here. We'll send you away once we get the first batch of, Marines coming back from Fallujah. So about a year and a half into it, Marines starts coming back from Fallujah. So I'm like, hey, Marines coming back from Fallujah. The war's supposed to be over, right? And all this stuff. And they're like, all right, we're going to send you to 3-1. Turbotown 1st Marines. So I was like, all right, I'm good with that. So, did my second B billet, I only did 2 years of it, and they're like, all right, we're going to send you to Turbotown 1st Marines. I get there, I go to India Company. My first sergeant, it's Gary Moran, big Gary Moran, he's my first sergeant. We're good friends. We knew each other from the drill field. Now we're India, and I get sent in the outbound with 3-1 for OIF 3. So I'm in the outbound for OIF 3. I get there and I'm relieving 325. And if you're familiar with 325 is the unit that took most casualties in Iraq. They had like 21 or 22, I believe, from Ohio. That they were Ohio, it was Ohio, that had all these kids that got killed. So they had like 51 total Ks, right? So I get there, so I got to do the left seat, right seat. I'm India Company, Turbotown 1st Marines. Yeah, I'm relieving India Company, Turbotown 25th Marines. Okay, and as I'm getting there, I'm doing my assessment as a company gunny. I'm a company gunny now. I'm doing my assessment, and rocket came through, man, and just blew me up, and kind of like rung my bell pretty hardcore. We took like 24 casualties that day with 325. I was not even there for 2 days, brother.
Yeah,
I just got to Iraq for 2 days, and so I ended up getting a huge concussion. Passed out and all that stuff. Woke up. Did all this stuff. Big attack went down. And part of the Brown Star write-up is this as well. This actions right there that happened that day with 325. Then 2 weeks later, I'm en route to Camp Golden, which is in Hit, Iraq, and I hit my vehicle stroke an ID. And rocked my world, man. I'm lucky to be alive. I ain't gonna lie to you. I walked out of it. It was intense. And I'm counting my blessings on it. And that's how it ended up getting performed in there. So,
gotcha. Okay, so hey, thanks for the comments, everybody. I appreciate you guys tuning in to myself and Aman talking a little bit now about his military service. Where earlier we talked about his journey from Guatemala to Los Angeles, ultimately funneled in the Marine Corps and achieving the highest enlisted rank in the Marine Corps of Sergeant Major. Pretty damn impressive. Now that you're out, brother, you've been out now for 5 years. You know, you served all that time, and I don't want to say it for you. I know I feel, we all kind of feel, I think, like-minded about it, but uh, like you said, I can sense your love of the Marine Corps. Like, it gave you drive, it gave you purpose. You know, all things that you know have been good, you know, to you in your life, despite the hardships, despite, you know, the injuries and the loss of life, and how we can't get up in the morning and shit sometimes because we hurt so bad. What do you miss the most about not being in anymore and not wearing that uniform?
You know, it's tough, man, because when we are so sucked in the Marine Corps when we're in it, right? I mean, like, I didn't have no structure. You know, growing up, I had my grandfather, who I loved to death. My father was never around, so like the male figure was missing in my life. But I love my mom. I thank my mom, for everything she did, the sacrifices she made. I mean, like, her vision of hey, I'm gonna go to a foreign country where I don't speak the language, work my ass off, and give a better life for my children. And you know, all that stuff, when I joined the Marine Corps, I found that camaraderie, that brotherhood, that support that, most people don't have, and those values, man. I completely, immersed myself in the core values of the Corps, the honor, courage, commitment, the leadership traits, all that stuff. It was something that I never was offered as a young adult, a young kid, so I have no guidance in it. So, I heard this the other day, and there's people in the Marine Corps and there are Marines,
Yeah.
and I love that because I was a Marine, I am a Marine, because I have no other structure that was given to me outside the Marine Corps. My values, my ethics, everything, it was structured from the Marine Corps. So getting out, it got to a point in the Marine Corps where I almost started hating the Marine Corps. you know. But I started to realize it wasn't the Marine Corps who was, screwing it up. It was the people sometimes that are in the Marine Corps. The people that are not Marines and they are in the Marine Corps are screwing it up for those that are Marines. If that makes sense. And I miss that, man. I love our history, our reputation, who we are. Having that as a background, it's amazing, Um, the leadership size, like everything that, be able to, there's 5 things I wanted to do in the Marine Corps on a daily basis, especially as a sergeant major, man. 5 things I wanted to do. And it was called, I used my own little, in the Marine Corps, we got acronyms, right? And I created my own acronym, which was Let Me, right? LETMI, right? Which is leadership, education, training, mentoring. But the most important thing, man, is inspiring, right? So like every morning I was like, who am I going to lead today? Who's going to lead me? I wake up, there's 5 things must happen every day. Who's leading me? Who am I leading, right? I need to establish that, in order for me to begin in a sequence of the day, right? How am I gonna, who am I gonna educate today? Who's gonna educate me today? Because we're never too old to freaking learn. We always education is continuous, man. Especially when it comes to the core, right? Training wise, who am I training? Am I training my body, my soul, my spirit?
Yeah.
All those things that you got to train in the back. That's part of the training, right? Who am I training today? Who's going to train me? I'm going to train myself on this, right? Who am I mentoring? And for mentoring, who am I mentoring? Who's mentoring me? Because no matter what, we still got to be. And I still pick up the phone, man, and call you. I've been talking to you numerous times on the phone. Pick up somebody who like, I need some mentoring, some guidance today. But the most important thing is, who am I going to inspire today?
Yeah.
Who's going to inspire me? Because I never believe motivation, man. I think motivation is temporary. That just, it lasts about a day or two, 3 months of boot camp and all that stuff. But if you're able to inspire people, you're going to be able to change lives, be able to change mentality, train of thoughts, So I made a point to where like, hey, listen, I, I got it. We all got it. We have a tough life. I mean, like, you know, I tell my story all the time. I'm like, oh, I was an immigrant and I grew up in South Central. So I got a double whammy. Or I had to get out of 2 holes. How am I going to break the immigration barrier? How am I going to break the poverty barrier? I'm from the ghetto. I'm poor. I don't have this. How am I going to make it in life and society? And how can I offer my kids a better way of life? It's not about me, man. It's about my kids. My kids now got a way head start than I did. You know, my daughter's 23 years old. She's a graduate from ASU. She graduated from ASU already. She's working on her master's, man. I'm like, to me, I'm winning. That to me, I'm winning. What I missed, but what I missed about the course, that is the camaraderie, man. The brotherhood, the conversations, the closed doors. Like, when you get there with your peers and you just start reminiscing about, man, you're not gonna believe this.
Yeah, man.
So it's like, so I miss that. I do miss it. At times to where, like, waking up in the morning, say, have some sense of purpose. So like doing those 5 things. Who am I leading, educating, mentoring, training, and the most important, who am I inspiring today? And not having that kind of thing. Sometimes it gets to you, but sometimes all you gotta do is pick up a phone, and here we are. It takes you back, back 20 years back, like that in a heartbeat. And that's the beauty about the Marine Corps as well.
It is, man. And I think the one thing that I would add to it is, like, I never ever felt alone in the Marine Corps, ever. Never ever did I ever feel alone. But once you start settling in as a civilian and you don't have the access and your brothers and your sisters to your immediate left and the right, you can feel alone. No matter how good your marriage is, no matter how close a relationship that you have with your kids, you just lack that sense of purpose. And the other thing is that it's different. We don't talk about it enough, but it's so different, civilian culture compared to Marine culture. You and I go to a bar and we're having a beer and somebody is getting froggy with me. I have no doubt that you're going to intervene, probably break a bar stool over that dude's friggin' face, right?
100%.
That does not exist out here in civilian community at all. And I tell you, you miss knowing that you have that level of, of support and that level of somebody having your back, for sure.
And you're 100% right, man. I'm in Surprise, Arizona, man. Ain't many Marines around. There's some, there's a couple around. You find them, but it's when you find one, it's funny as hell, because it's kind of like, oh, you sure about? And I got the big First Marines tattoo on my forearm, right? So they see the First Marines, they're like, oh, you're First Marines. I was with 5th Marines, and blah, blah, blah. They get all excited, right? Those eyes open up, and that excitement. I'm like, damn, I met somebody who's got similar mentality, right? And I miss it, man. I mean, the leadership, man. I mean, be able to enable and inspire people. That to me, it doesn't happen here in the civilian world, man. Like, I was talking to a kid today, having a great conversation at the gym, like he was, just trying to talk. He was having a bad day, and, sat down and talked to him for like 35 minutes, man, at the gym, and then he's like, I appreciate that you took the time, of your workout and going for you to talk to me. But to me, all I looked at was a Lance Corporal. It's like I saw a Lance Corporal, but needed somebody to talk to. And, and it was one of like, hey, man, it's going to be okay, bro. Like, it's going to be okay. You're going through this, just kind of like giving some life advice. And not so much, and that's the difference, I think, that for us, once we got to our time of like almost retirement, the inspiring the mentoring that we did was a lot different than we did when we were company gunnies, and staff sergeants, it was life mentoring, and it was life lessons that we have that were like, hey, think about this before, you think about that. And then, and then even as a regimental sergeant major, I sat down in so many smoke pits, man. That was my favorite thing to do, sit in a smoke pit or go to the chow. And just go to the chow and sit right next to. I would never look for a staff and CO side. I would look for the last corporal side and go sit over there and and break bread with them and hear their little freaking stories that they got. And sometimes they would dime out their own battalions, how jacked up they are, and they're like, hey, let me call that sergeant major about this, because hey, man, what are you doing over there, right? And it was funny, but I miss those, man. And and there's so much that we could talk all night about that, but I think that's the biggest thing. You're never alone in the Marine Corps, and it's crazy because like I look at Facebook and I got like about 1,500 friends in there, on Facebook. But the reality becomes to like now in retirement, there's a handful
That's
that
it.
reach out to you, and be like, "How you doing, man?" I'm like, and then, time to time, you got to do the same thing. It's like those
Yeah.
guys reach out and like, "Hey, how you doing? You all right, man? You good?" Or like, "How's life?" Life is good. Life is great. But life
Dude,
sucks.
this has been awesome. Like, I'm glad that you're here with me, and you're able to exude some of your leadership principles on the viewers out there that are that are listening or are going to listen to it. Um, I tell you, man, it's been great seeing your face again and catching up, outside of just some text messages. We're getting ready to wrap up, but
Awesome.
before we do, man, I always tell all my guests, I give you kind of like the last save round. Any shouts out there, and you don't want to miss people that you love. Go ahead and take the microphone for a minute and wrap us up.
Oh man, a couple things, man. It just there's so much that I would tell you, but to me, it's like um, one, is the leadership that we got in the Marine Corps. We always got to stay with us, right? And no matter what we do, where we are, we always gonna, have that above the civilian side where we are being, where we were trained leaders at one point or another, right? And trying to help out some of the or the kids nowadays in society. We're like trying to make them understand why we did and why we did it for. But for me, it's the inspiration, man. I try to get out on a daily basis and figure out how to inspire others and tell my story and tell them it's like, hey, it's gonna be okay. It's gonna be, everything, that you work for. You got to work hard. To me, I learned in life that in order to gain things, you got to sacrifice things. Nothing comes easy.
Yeah.
Something's got to give. Something's got to give. Um, and practice those things on a daily basis, man. Be a good human, a good American, and always try to serve something that's bigger than you. For me at this point in life, is how do I serve my community? Trying to get involved with the community, trying to get
Yeah.
involved with the veterans. Reach out to guys, and whenever somebody reaches out to me, do everything in my power to help them out and giving the best advice possible. I mean,
Hell yeah.
with that being said, man, I thank you for having me, bro. It's been an honor, man. It's always great to see you, and catching up and talk about old times and make me reminisce through the timeline of life, right?
Yeah, your journey is very, very inspiring to me. Just I think about just how hard it is, for a dude like me, to have the life and the career that I had, but then for you to have it, and just you're starting over at 13 years old and relearning everything, in an area where you look different, and the language barriers and all that stuff. You're a very tenacious and resilient man, and I got so much respect for you. And I really appreciate you sharing with everybody out there, and giving everybody a little small piece of humble pie unintentionally, because it is very humbling hearing your story, man. And I'm proud of you, dude.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate you, man.
Yeah, man. Much love, and hey, to all the viewers out there, thanks for continuing to rock and roll with me. Aman, I'm gonna have you hold tight so I can get your track here at the end. But I love you guys. Thank you for the support, and hey, let's keep on moving forward and inspiring and making a difference. I hope you enjoyed tonight's episode with Aman. Take care.